And Wednesdays, yeah. Hello there. Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios in Kokum, namely on your digital terrestrial TV, because we are free to air on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. Thanks for choosing us this afternoon. We are JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, the minority is to hold Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta before Parliament to present government's response plan to persistent hikes in fuel prices, as experts project petrol and diesel is to hit 9 Ghana cedis by the end of March. We'll hear from the Energy Ministry, which is warning Ghanaians will have to pay back whatever government spends as subsidies on fuel. We'll assess that shortly. Absenteeism in Parliament now under scrutiny as the former Member of Parliament files complaint about the absence of MPs from the House. How will this end? We'll explore that shortly. And also in this bulletin as well, this afternoon, human rights campaigners join forces to push for the decriminalization and declassification of petty offences, with Shraj arguing arresting persons engaged in petty thievery of crimes amounts to criminalization of poverty. This afternoon, we have a full house discussion on the matter here on The Pulse, plus your views, where you can join us on our social media channels. My name is Blessed Sugana. The Pulse is always brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. We are also streaming this afternoon on our social media handles and also on YouTube. You can join us there. Our handles is at JoyNews on TV. Twitter us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Sugan. Always a pleasure serving you here on The Pulse. Well, and this is something we've been keeping our eyes on for you. In fact, the minority in Parliament is to hold Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta before the House to present a government response plan to the persistent hikes in fuel prices. In just the space of 2 months, prices of diesel and petrol have increased by over 30%, selling at a high of 8.29 pesos at the pumps. Already, the public transport operators have effected a 15% increment in transport fares in response to the changes in the fuel prices. But just a week after that adjustment, experts in the petroleum sector are actually predicting that the commodity will hit 9 cedis by the end of March. So what can government do about this? We've been exploring all of this in a report that we have for you. But first, take a listen to the head of pricing at the National Petroleum Authority, Abbas Dasunti, speaking to us earlier. Whatever MPA does will have to be in the context of the law. So the law will have to guide them to. As a regulator, I think I've mentioned before that we do not make fiscal policies for government in terms of where it raises its revenue from. We would have been happy if there was no tax on petroleum products at all, but that is not the reality. So the reality is that it's a difficult situation for government now. One, government needs to generate revenue to support the budget, and two, prices are rising. So would scrapping all the taxes of petroleum products be a reality? Is that feasible? I'm sure you would agree that that is not feasible for the government at this moment. And that is where MPA looks at the law and where there's flexibility to do something about it. So for us as a regulator, what we are focusing on now is that now that the prices are rising, we have to make sure that, as we always do, that the consumer is not overpriced in the face of this challenge. And even for the supplier of the products, that they are also recovering their investment fairly. Mind you, if the rising prices is having an effect on their ability to supply products, I'm not sure we prefer not to have the product at all. We prefer to have the product and pay the right price for it. So for us, we have made some recommendations to government as to what it can do, but it all depends on the government fiscal space, whether it is. And that's why I'm concerned about the recommendations. That's why I'm concerned about the recommendations you made to government on this. So many stakeholders have been preferring their best possible approach. What's that of the NPA in terms of the recommendations you're giving? We'll get some more response on that big question today as to what it is that government intends to do. Already we know that the minority in Parliament has served notice that it will hold Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta before Parliament to present a government response on this particular situation. So let's analyze all of this and find out what would be the best strategy in terms of dealing with all of these matters. There are factors also beyond the states, which has got to do with the international prices on the global market. Joining me now is Peter Tekpe. He's an energy policy analyst, understands quite a lot of what's happening now. Peter, so you've been with us all throughout. First, when we crossed the 7 cedis mark. Today, we're breaking the 8, and many are wondering how far this will go. What's your take on this, first of all? Peter Tekpe, if you can hear me, I'm asking you to unmute so we can get the points that you're trying to put across there. Yeah. So what we need to do now is to give you a comprehensive coverage of all that's been happening all throughout the day and the reaction we're getting from drivers as well. There's a report that has captured this, and right when we return, Peter has his take on this matter. Stay with us.
It's the 2nd of March 2022, and I am out and about to gauge the views of some drivers and passengers on the increase of fuel prices. I'm currently at a Goil filling station, and their prices right now is 7.880 Ghana cedis per litre for both super and diesel. So let's find out what the drivers have to say about these prices.
It's affecting expenditure.
Yeah.
A whole lot. Now, first I used to fill my tank, how do you call it, at 300 cedis. Yeah. But now I'm hitting 400, which is really uncomfortable. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically it.
The prices, it's unexpectable because they just increase it anyhow they want it. The truth is that despite they are going to put all the blame on the Russia case, but that wasn't the case. The prices are even rising before the Russia case came about. Are you getting me? And they are going to use that one as a care of, which is very bad. Are you getting me? Because then there's other taxes on the fuel. If they should even remove that one alone, because I quite remember the previous government tried to do something, and then they tried to raise some money, so in case you have this type of problem, they can to subsidize, so that the people in the country will be okay with it. But it wasn't that way. Are you getting me? So we have nothing to do. They are not thinking about us, because without the fuel I cannot move, I cannot run. So they are using it because they know that without the fuel you cannot eat or you cannot do any business. So that's why they are using it as their position. I mean, to get whatever they want.
Then you are a taxi driver and it's affecting you every day. So does this mean that you will increase in your fare when people come? Instead of taking like 20 cedis to Osu, you'll take 25 to Osu because of the fuel prices. As a taxi driver, I want to know your thoughts.
Because at times when you charge, there are some people, they are just crying. At least 20 cedis, but they give you 10 cedis. Yeah. You have to take it like that. Yeah. Because the system is hard. Yeah. So you have to help them.
And now I'm about to pay to this year. Send the first meeting on echo phone. This year, I mean, 2 million, sir. The young now only use on my. Say a lot of fair crown when Fabian come by. Am I a one chain? And the almost share my.
So because fuel prices across all, like, or charge it differently for your passengers?
Me charge you now. On soon. Send all by Gino to say if I have quite a crowd can say 20 hours. On those person, yes, and a job. And Tiama almost almost passengers almost almost
fuel prices never cost no. A dear Koichi because a Juma young so obey Juma no scout by no best scanning in our cut off world. And Tiaban on here no year baby one.
Fuel prices across all.
Yeah, quite dear. One should say 2 free animal. I buy no wire crack, or your way whom you without come on that. If you tell me if you ever see any way me whom be that. Fu akoswa kakatabedu 40 Ghana for 1 gallon. Ye whom down to Munjabi Munka be my why ye brepa, yes, sir. One should ever sweet me subium. I'm back. Bye, Yadamas.
For the no band was all you know to my. No, we had the before the Nobuya, some point on Tuesday, but in the passengers news only free. While passenger for Caravacasa, San Nobuya means at this campo and go on to 25 Kanga Noma. And the pensions on Tuesday, Nancy bread.
And a very much expected position there. Drivers asking government to intervene, and also a lot more needs to be done about this. We're watching the global market as well. Peter Tekpe is back with us on Zoom. Peter, so that's the concern of drivers out there. Their concern is about the persistent increment in fuel prices. From where you sit right now, is government policy the way to go in terms of dealing with this?
Thank you very much. Well, if you look at the current situation we are facing, Russia plays a very critical role in terms of world supply of fuel, because Russia is among the top 3 world producers apart from United States of America and then Asia. So what needs to be done is this. Russia cannot be taken out of the equation, because Russia alone as of last year did over 500 million metric tons of fuel production. What it means is that if you take Russia out of the equation, then 10% of the supply of fuel to the entire world is going to be affected, because in all they do about 10%. So it's a very critical situation we find ourselves, and as a result we cannot actually write them out entirely. That's why the situation needs to be managed carefully.
And there's always been a disconnect as to how come countries like Ghana, and obviously we know that Ghana is an oil exporting country, and yet in spite of all of the crude that we're exporting, we're not able to cushion citizens. Can you explain that dynamics for us as to how come we're not able to feel that cushion from government in spite of being an oil exporting country?
Well, the issue is that we have about 97 countries in all, producing this oil. Ghana is about number 33 and just a little below 200,000 barrels a day, when Russia and Co are doing over 1 million. And so if you look at the situation, even though we are producing, the volume is not enough. That is why we have to depend on a lot of import. And assuming we are producing enough, our production, is off. That is, I'm talking of Temoya refinery. So we cannot even refine it. And as a result, government is also
just on that point, government indicates to us that the plan is to convert some of the facilities into a tank farm. That obviously should be a policy that would help the economy and cushion Ghanaians, isn't it? But it's not working.
No, that will not solve the problem at hand. The reason is that if you don't produce and you import, then the entire management is out of your control, and that is what is causing us now. Assuming Ghana is producing enough to sell enough in country to produce enough, what it means is that government will then not be, or the private sector will not be spending a lot of foreign currency to be importing. When TOR produces, all the BDCs go and buy in Ghana cedis. So it reduces the impact of foreign currency demand as well. That is why we need TOR to produce. If you turn TOR into a tank farm, facility, it means that you are going to import more. And looking at what is happening in Russia, in Ukraine currently, it means that once prices goes up, then we are going to be impacted. So we don't need to convert TOR into a tank farm. We have to rather expand BOST and keep TOR as a strategic partner in the production of crude, which will reduce the demand on foreign currency drastically. So we need TOR to be running.
Right. As we speak now, we're keeping our eyes on Parliament to see if minority will go ahead to get government's response plan. But do you really see a plan ever since, of course, the NPA started the projections as to, and not just the NPA, we've seen COPEC, we've seen the National Petroleum Authority also giving us clear indications that fuel prices may remain high on the market for quite some time. Are you seeing a clear government policy in response to what's happening?
Exactly. In fact, government actually knows what is happening more than even us. But there is a deliberate attempt on the part of government, not unintentional, but the issue is that government needs money. We all know what is happening. So if you look at the situation, government does not, seems not to care, but that is not the situation. The situation is that government needs money. And so at the time when prices are going up in the world market, they have to even bring in the taxes that they have even temporarily suspended. Why? Because government is constrained in terms of revenue mobilization. But I keep saying something that government needs to sacrifice at the time we are in now. The word is sacrifice. Why? tomorrow price can get to $150, $200. Is government saying they are still not going to do anything? No. That is where the sacrifice comes from. Because where we are getting to now, the impact is becoming huge. You know what? Prices of goods and services are going up. Disposable income is remaining the same. And when it happens like that, the citizens are more impacted. So what government needs to do is to sacrifice part of the taxes, because
and let me just take your thoughts on this, because that's what we've been watching closely, how to cushion consumers. But the point has been about the price stabilization levy. Questions as to whether or not government should account for that fund and why we're not using that judiciously to cushion the citizenry at this point, particularly when payments have been made for some time. The suspension was brief. So why are we not making use of that levy as of now?
You see, yes, it is very true. And one of the issues that I think the citizens have in terms of tax payment is about transparency and accountability. I think that nobody will have problem in paying tax if there is proper accountability. And it depends. That's why trust needs to be developed. If somebody is managing something for you and the person is not accounting for it properly to your satisfaction, then trust is broken. And that is what we are facing now. Not only that tax, but even the tax that is taking care of toll debt as well. As it stands now, nobody has given us detailed account of how much has been accumulated in terms of payment to toll debt recovery levy, how much has been accumulated in terms of cash, how much has been paid, what is left. All we know is that toll is going down because it's having financial crisis. But we are not being accounted to in terms of how much has been accumulated to defray that cost and how much is left and what is the actual situation on the ground. That is the problem. And so where we find ourselves now, that stabilization levy is far off. That should have been taken out of the price build-up, because we need that to be taken out. The reason is that it was introduced. Look, what is happening now is just a complete reversal of what happened when the tax was introduced. It was introduced when prices at the world market was also going low. Now prices at the world market is also going up. So what do? We have to take it out. But like I said, government needs tax revenue to be able to, administer all the infrastructure project that they have, budgeted for. And that is the reason. But where we find ourselves now, government has no option than to sacrifice part of the taxes in the price build-up. And you see, this cannot be permanent. You do it temporarily, like we did for the other two. You can do it for 6 months.
But Peter, how about
you introduce it again?
I get the point, but how about being holistic in this approach? The fact that there are external factors that are way beyond the control of government in this case. You were just talking about Russia and some of the OPEC member states who could, cause some level of destabilization on the global market. That's a perspective to also explore, isn't it?
Of course, that is why austerity measures are needed. When you are faced with a situation where there's nothing you can do, it's beyond control, what do? It's just like when COVID set in, it was beyond government. What could government do? They introduced austerity measures to support businesses. We find ourselves in a similar situation. We can't control the price at the world market. So what do? We introduce austerity measures in the short term or in the medium term by reducing some of the taxes. Then you let the Ghanaian public know that, look, because of the situation we find ourselves, this is what government can do to support by taking out tax A, tax B. When things get stabilized, it will be reintroduced again. Then people know that, oh, government is thinking about the suffering the world price is bringing on the citizenry. But when there is silence, then it becomes a cause for concern because the impact of price increases affect everything.
All right then.
Don't forget that the transport operators have indicated that they have signed an MOU with government that when the increment gets to a certain percentage, they also have to increase their fares as well. For how long? It's like now is the Ghanaian who is facing all the issues that this Russia, Ukraine, battle is bringing. It's like everything is on the Ghanaian and nothing could be done. No, as a leader, when you are faced with a critical situation, there are solutions that are professed. We have emergency solution, we have medium-term solution, we have short-term solution, we have long-term solution. where we find ourselves now, we need emergency situation solutions. Just like when COVID set in, government brought in emergency solutions to support the citizenry. We are in the same situation and we need the same support from government as well.
Where are we? Are we out of the woods, and is this just the tipping point? Are we going beyond 8? What's your prediction?
No, we are not. You know, nobody can predict. Putin. You know, when he was saying he was going to attack, people were taking it for granted now. He can't do it. He was just saying it. We just woke up one day and then it all started.
Right.
When it will end, nobody can tell. That is why we need a solution in country to be able to support the economy, because we should assume that this is going to continue for some time, because nobody has control over what is going on in terms of in the minds of Putin. So what do? We have to then look at a solution in the country to support the economy, and that is what is needed now, because we cannot control it. Well, it can fall as well, because that is what is happening. But at the end of the day, we are in a situation where it is going up. So what do? Government needs to come in. Where we are now, the only solution is that government needs to introduce some measure, because the price will keep going up. And when price keep going up, the prices will keep changing at the pumps, because the private businessman who is selling the fuel at the pumps is looking at his margin. He will never sacrifice all his margin to make a loss, because you need to pay salaries, you need to pay bills, just like government also need to pay bills. So what do? Both of us sacrifice. So while they are sacrificing on their margins, government also need to sacrifice on their taxes. Then at the end of the day, we all meet itself at some point. Then there will be a win-win situation. But when one person is sacrificing and one is not, look, the prices you see at the pumps now, the fact is that if the OMC should introduce their margin, actually, we will be heading towards 9 cities.
Right.
That means that they have sacrificed. That's what government also needs to sacrifice.
Peter, there are more reactions to this. Fortunately, Kojo Poku, who's also an energy analyst, is joining us by phone to share his concerns with us as well. But Kojo, the focus is also about consumers and what they could do in these trying times. What's your prescription to all of this?
Can you repeat the last part of your question?
Yes, so I was asking about, obviously, the consumers. They are bearing the brunt of all of this. What's your prescription in terms of what the average consumer out there could do to perhaps cut down costs and also to cushion themselves, but particularly as we're not seeing any intervention come through from government at this point?
Well, some of us have always said that when it comes to fuel, because it's a deregulated market, we should always try and look out for the cheapest filling station to buy from. Though people are quoting that prices are around 8 to 9, there are some filling stations that will sell a little bit up below 8 cities. So anytime you take the total price, there are some indigenous filling stations, OMCs, that will sell 30 pesos to 40 pesos cheaper than Total. So what governments can do, and most people should do, is to look out for the cheaper filling stations and buy from. Most people will say that government should reduce taxes. And then I always that the 30, 40 pesos that government will take out of the taxes, you are already having that on the pump if you are to look around and shop.
Right. So you are relying largely on the business cycle, the fact that the markets will be able to correct itself. But we know that will be a short-term measure, particularly when
the market will not correct itself. Right. The deregulation is not working well enough for the competition for the market to correct itself. But what I'm saying is that if you are saying that prices are high and somebody is selling it at 8.29 or 8.3, there's somebody who's selling to you at 7.9. So if you ask me what the consumer can do, he can buy cheaper.
Yeah, but that's why I was referring you to the point that would obviously be a short-term measure. The fact that it will obviously increase demand on these OMCs, and then they would obviously increase the price. That's the short-term effect of it. So it won't make much of a difference, will it?
No, it won't, because in the short, these prices on the world market is not a long-term measure. I mean, this war is on now, but I can assure you that what we are looking at is prices which are high in the next a couple of months. By March of April, prices will come back into the lower 90s.
Right.
When this war starts, because of the uncertainty and nobody knows how it's going to escalate, the market behave the way it's behaving. But after a while, it will normalize.
Right.
The OPEC countries will most likely have to pump more oil, and the prices will recede. So in the short term, while the prices are high, find a cheaper filling station and buy from. It's the shocks of war. That's why nobody likes war. Unfortunately, there isn't much. We all know that government is trying to even raise more revenue through taxes. So it's very unfortunate that people will say that, oh, but government should reduce taxes.
Right.
The government wants to collect more taxes. How do you now get the same government to reduce taxes?
Kujipuku, there is an energy policy analyst, earlier heard from Peter Tech, but also sharing his thoughts on this matter. We will definitely bring you some updates here on the JoyNews channel. But one more issue that we've been watching for you all throughout the day, a former member of Parliament has actually petitioned the office of the Speaker of Parliament to address the issue of absenteeism in the House. Ras Mubarak believes that the Standing Order 16.1, which will adequately address the issues of absenteeism, ought to be looked at by the Speaker of Parliament to deal with some MPs who have missed 15 working days. It includes Sarah Ajasafo, who's Member of Parliament for Domeko Abenya. We also have the Ayaso Central, Henry Kote MP, who's also MP for Ayaso Central. We have Hunter West as well, who's contained in that petition, and Asin Central, Kennedy Ejapon, who's part of the contained in the document that Ras Mubarak has sent to Parliament today, actually asking the Speaker to crack their whip. Fortunately, the Member of Parliament, the former Member of Parliament, is joining us via Zoom now. Such a pleasure to be having you at this point. So first of all, let's understand your demands. Is it the case that you want the Speaker to address this issue collectively, or perhaps you're just fixated on these four members of Parliament that you're asking the Speaker to crack the whip on?
Well, it's a constitutional requirement, isn't it? The Constitution says that when a Member of Parliament absents himself or herself for more than 15 sitting days of a meeting of Parliament, you know, it ought to be brought to the Privileges Committee of Parliament, and the Privileges Committee of Parliament will deliberate on the matter and pronounce judgment. You know, this matter has been out there for quite a while now. I don't see any movement within Parliament to have it resolved immediately. And as a citizen, you know, I'm quite worried that Parliament is not sending the right signals, especially at a time when there is a collapse of trust in politics and in Parliament as an institution. I'm sure you've seen the Afrobarometer report, which places Parliament as the third most corrupt institution in the country. Parliament has an opportunity to redeem its image by dealing with, you know, issues like this. This is not the first time something like this has come up. In the 7th Parliament, we had an MP who was absent for nearly 2 years and nothing happened. I mean, a clear violation of the tenets of the Constitution. In the Parliament before the 7th, the civil society organization, Odikro, had petitioned Parliament over a similar incident and nothing happened. Parliament cannot be seen to be the institution that balks, that runs away, that shirks its responsibility from, you know, addressing with matters of law and respecting the Constitution.
And that's where the concern is, that you are not a novice. You quite understand parliamentary workings, and this issue of absenteeism is not new to the House, really. Is it an Alban Bagbin problem, or perhaps this goes way beyond the Speaker and that Ghanaians would have to demand more from their MPs? What's the perfect solution to the demand that you're trying to draw the attention of the Speaker to?
Well, so it goes beyond, you know, Speaker Bagbin, obviously. It precedes him, you know, but he's the Speaker now, so he has the opportunity, he has a unique opportunity, you know, to restore the waned, the lost confidence, the lost trust in the institution of Parliament. You know, and that is why he has to make a pronouncement on it on the floor for the issue to be referred to the Privileges Committee. The Ghanaian public would not accept anything but Parliament dealing with things like this. Imagine for a moment if you were to absent yourself from work for 15 without a just cause explanation. You know, multimedia will probably fire you. I mean, in the street who works in your department or agency or in a private company. You know, so when the ordinary Ghanaian would get punished for something like this,
right,
a member of Parliament who makes law must not, you know, get away with something like this.
But some say that if you look at precedents, and we're talking about parliamentary record, there are some MPs who've gone way past the 15 days. And if you look at the names you've presented before Parliament, it appears that you're very much interested in the New Patriotic Party side of the House. Is your motive political in this case?
To be honest, if you know of any NDC member who's absented himself or herself for more than 15 days, do send me a name. I'll be happy to write back to the Speaker and call out that member of Parliament. Every constituency in the country deserves to be represented by a member of Parliament. And when an MP is unable to discharge, his or her duties, it's fair to the public and to their constituents that they stepped aside for somebody else to take the job.
Right. What's your locus in this? Because the argument out there is you're not even their constituents. You don't belong to any of these constituencies. You're a former member of Parliament for Kumbungu. So why then are you not concerned about your MP now? Why are you fixated on the likes of Sarah Adjuasafo?
Every Ghanaian has to be interested in the happenings in Parliament, in attempts that seek to erode the gains we have made in our democracy. And I clearly think that it is incidences like this one that erodes the confidence, the trust of the public in our politics. People's confidence in politics in our country is at an all-time low, and it's important that all of us did our level best, to resuscitate, to bring back that trust. Because if Parliament goes down, the country has gone down. Parliament is the only institution that has the mandate to hold the executive to account. And that is why every Ghanaian ought to be interested in egregious violations of our constitution. And clearly, the constitution has been violated, by these 4 MPs. And it's not just Sarah Adjuasafo, it's the other ones, Henry Korte, Kojokum, Ebenezer, the Kennedy Japan. And as I've said, evidence that I've seen indicates that these are the 4 culprits.
Okay, that's what you have. So you have 4 for now. And your belief is that we don't have more members of Parliament who may have missed parliamentary duties for way beyond 15 days. That's your argument.
I mean, these 4 have missed the 15 days. Not 15 days, but 15 sittings in a meeting of Parliament. Let's get that clear.
Right.
But as I've said, I haven't seen any evidence to the effect that there are more members of Parliament who've fallen foul.
Okay, so how about being fair to some of these people involved? We're not permitted perhaps to put out their health status out there, but reports that we're getting is that some have missed parliamentary sittings as a result of how they're not feeling well and what the their medical advisors are telling them, which you obviously are in a privileged position to know about. Have you done due diligence to interact with some of these colleagues of yours, because you've been in Parliament with them, to at least find out why this is happening, so it doesn't seem like you're being fixated on the NPP side?
Even in the case of the president, when he's incapacitated to discharge his duties as a president, the Constitution makes provision. If someone is unable to discharge their duties as a member of Parliament as a result of ill health, the Constitution clearly makes provision, And I don't see why people should hold on to the position of member of Parliament when they know, or when their parties know, that they are not in a position to go on with their duties. It's just fair unto the constituents, that they get representation, that their voices be heard on the floor of Parliament. And it's most unfortunate that these things have happened time and again, year in, year out, Parliament in, Parliament out. We see incidences of MPs showing complete disregard and disrespect to the Constitution. These things must not continue.
Okay, so in clear terms, what's your demand of the Speaker, and how fast do you want Alban Bagbin to deal with your concerns, the concerns you've placed at his doorsteps now?
So the petition request of the Speaker to, raise this matter on the floor and to refer it to the committee responsible for privileges. It would be a tragedy if Parliament did it, if they dragged their feet and danced around the issue and wasted more time because it would not do the reputation, the credibility of Parliament any good. I mean, the public is watching, and the public is unhappy about what is happening, that they would lose their jobs if they were to exhibit these kinds of tendencies, yet elected members of Parliament who are there on behalf of the public would or are seen to be getting away with some of these things.
Ras Mubarak, one more issue. It may sound unfair, but we need to talk about it for obvious reasons. Sarah Ajasafo has been, of course, the focus in Parliament. The concern from the governing side is that she's disrupting government business. You've been monitoring the arguments from both the minority side and the majority side on this matter. You've worked with her in Parliament. What's your suspicion of all that's going on, and what conclusion are you arriving at, and what do you feel should be the way forward?
Well, so Ajasafo was a fantastic, legislator by all accounts. She went into the executive. She was given a job to run. They second guessed her, and it's unfortunate that she hasn't held on to principle and resigned. Because if you have a job as a minister, and then the executive is second guessing you on your decisions, the best thing to do would be to walk away. You've heard about the incidents that occurred under her ministry and how certain decisions were reversed. Clearly, anyone who knows what they're doing would not tolerate that.
You feel the NPP is not? You feel the NPP is not being fair to Sarah Ajasafo? This is someone who's been appointed, has served obviously in a very influential position, not just in this term, but in the previous term as well. She served in leadership in Parliament at the time you were there. What else do you need to prove to you, perhaps to the contrary, that this very MP we are talking about has been provided every opportunity she needs in the NPP?
No, well, I mean, I think she's been unfair to herself, because if I were in a position where, having been given a job, I would be second guessed at any moment, of the way, I would walk away, and that is what she should have done. Stuck to her principles, say, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but here's your job. If you would continue reversing decisions that I have taken as your minister, then I'm afraid, I don't want to do it, and walk away. That would be a dignified way of going about things, but obviously she's botched it up, by her continued absence from Parliament, by her continued refusal to either, walk away from the executive position or to come back to Parliament and represent her people, which is most unfortunate. So I would say it was within her powers, and clearly no serious country would tolerate, this kind of behavior, where you see clear violation of the Constitution, where a minister is showing an act of indiscipline. But it also says a lot about the executive. I mean, the government, to be precise, the president does not have the spine, to fire Ajasafo for, basically holding the government hostage.
But then your focus now is about the appointment and serving in the executive. The concern now is about being in Parliament. She's been voted into office by the residents of Dominicavia, and they're expecting their MP to show up at least in Parliament. So you wanted to also relinquish that position as well as MP? Is that your expectation?
But it's not just Ajasafo. I've cited the example of the Minister for Greater Accra Region, who is also MP. Kochokum, my very, very good friend, who I'm told is not in the best of health. And then you've got Kennedy Japan.
You want Kennedy Japan to leave Parliament, to leave his seat?
All of them have violated the Constitution, and there should be no exception. The Constitution is not a respecter of person, right? If you violated the Constitution, let the law take its course.
Okay,
I don't see why we should make exceptions for people because they punch above their weight.
Right. I'll take your thoughts on one of the thorny issues for which obviously all of this petition is stemming from, which is the controversial subject of the e-levy. We've heard both sides of the House express their position on this matter. There's a deadlock as we speak. What's your solution to what's happening now? The fact that there's a likely brawl that may emerge again if government goes to the House to ask for the approval of that controversial bill.
Well, I mean, e-levy is retrogressive. You know, already the ordinary Ghanaian is burdened with a lot of taxes. This government has refused to be accountable to the people of Ghana, and you can't continue asking people to tighten their belts whilst you go about on a profligate expenditure. Again, you can talk about the Ajosafo incident, where we are told a charter flight was brought, you know, hired to bring her in at the taxpayer's expense, where we are told by a certain member of parliament that he was given an amount of money to deposit in his account. I mean, the Ghanaian public is watching all of this, you know, and people would want to pay taxes when they know that their government is accountable.
Be it as it may, we know that salaries are already delaying, and in fact, the speaker himself is warning that if we don't take care in the next 3 months, the public sector will bear the brunt of all that's happening. You're not concerned about that?
What use would be paying taxes when you know that the government is going to blow it all away in, you know, some fanciful expenditure, some profligate expenditure? What use is paying your taxes when you know that, you know, your tax city is not being used judiciously the way it's supposed to be used?
Okay, and your solution, your alternative to the e-levy?
And my alternative to the e-levy would be for government to build bridges and mend fences. I don't see that happening. I don't see them, you know, reaching out, you know, extending an olive branch. You saw how President Mahama dealt with the crisis under his administration when he held the Century Conference. And even with the Century Conference, they clearly refused to be a part of anything that would proffer solutions, you know, to making our country greater. So e-levy obviously would not be the way forward. There are a lot of losses in the system. Government should endeavor to plug those loopholes. Government should cut down on the profligacy, and government should be accountable to the people of Ghana on whose authority and mandates they are running this current administration that has, by all accounts, been very, very insensitive to the plight of the people.
Ras Mubarak is former member of Parliament for Kumbungu. Thank you so much, sir, for your time here on the JoyNews channel. When we return, we'll talk about the push for the decriminalization of petty offences. Shraj has a position on the matter. We'll bring it to you here on The Pulse. Stay with us. And you're welcome back to the Pulse. Now we know that the commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Joseph Whittal, is actually calling for the decriminalization and declassification of petty offences in Ghana. Now he's part of some speakers at the National Conference on the matter, saying that to jail people for petty offences is actually to criminalize poverty, hence the need to expunge them from Ghana's statutes. Now, begging, issues of loitering, washing clothes in public, hawking, and other related offences are part of this list that are punishable by a fine or up to 3 years of prison term here in Ghana. But let's get an understanding of why this new coalition wants a change in the statutes of Ghana. Fortunately, we've been joined by the project officer of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Tony Sejo, who is joining us to provide some clarity on this. So, Tony, first of all, help us to understand what the law says about these petty offences, and why do you want it to be changed now?
Right, thank you for having me. Now, first of all, petty offences, to be honest, in our laws, in Ghana's laws, we don't have any offenses called petty or minor offenses. What the name given to them in our laws is misdemeanors. Misdemeanors, normally when they happen, the punishment for them is from 0 to 3 years. So what are some of these offenses? We are talking about colonial offenses that were handed up down by the British. For example, hawking. For example, begging. For example, doing Okada business. Sanitation offenses. Traffic offenses, drivers who park on the wrong side of the road. All these offenses are minor offenses. And what happens is that if a person is arrested for these offenses, they are taken to, by the police, they are taken to court, and they are normally fined. A fine of maybe 300 Ghana, 500 Ghana, 1,000 Ghana cedis. But because these people who commit these offenses are poor people, they can't pay. And because they cannot pay, the only option is for them to go to jail, to go to prison. And so what we have seen over the years is that a large number of people are in prison just because they are poor and they are vulnerable. If a family member of yours is fined for maybe 500 Ghana cedis, they can call upon you and you pay and they will be free. But many of these
Tony appears to be having some challenges with the connection there. But
offenders are the
right.
poor and marginalized who are fined the fine. And so if they are fined, they are unable to pay the fine, they end up in prison. And that is why our coalition is pursuing this agenda, this project, to ensure that petty offenses petty offenses are decriminalized
now, Tony, what's the concern really of this coalition? Is it the case that you're concerned about the prisons being choked with persons who genuinely offend or fall foul of our laws? What's your concern really? Because it's the law, and I guess it must be applied, isn't it?
Very well. Yes, there is prison overcrowding in Ghana currently. Our prisons are overcrowded by 52%. That is the level of overcrowding. And so many people in prison, they go in for these minor offenses. They come back and they go and mix up with hardened criminals, people who've committed serious offenses. So when they come back, what happens is that they've been trained to commit other offenses. And we are saying that some of these people, it's because of poverty. Majority of Ghanaians belong to the poor class. And so when somebody finds he or himself in this situation, there is no option for him than to go to jail. And so we are saying that as a democracy, the constitution says that everybody is equal before the law, and so people's rights must be respected. We are not saying that people who commit minor offenses should be set free. No, we are saying there should be alternative means of punishment. For example, if somebody commits an offense, a driver parks at the wrong side of the road and is arrested, why don't you let him sweep? Why don't you let him weed? Why don't you let him to go and work on the state farm?
And just to take you on that, why not allow them to go through reformation, which is obviously a part of the reasons why the prison service was formed? We know that you're not necessarily going just to serve your jail term, but by the objectives of the prison service, you're supposed to be taken through retraining, reorientation, and then you could go through some formation. So are you questioning that process as well?
That is the ideal, but the reality on the ground is different. Our prisons, unfortunately, don't reform. You know, when prisoners are sent to prison, they are supposed to be classified.
And you have evidence to back what you're saying. Tony will definitely join us, reconnect with us, and explain their position a bit more for us to understand the demands of this new coalition that's asking for misdemeanors to be dealt with. We'll return to that later on here on the polls. But what you need to know as well is that the issues in Parliament are unfolding because the nocturnal member of Parliament, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, is also fighting off claims that he is quick to make allegations without pursuing them to its logical conclusion. Mr. Ablakwa last year was accused the majority caucus of aiding the impersonation of the Domi Kwabinya member of Parliament during the votes to overturn the approval of the 2022 budget. That's not all. He is also among others who allege that Kennedy Japan of Sin Central and the Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Kote actually absented themselves from Parliament without the Speaker's express permission. However, in an interview with JoyNews, the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee insists that he has not abandoned any of the issues he earlier raised. He reveals that the minority is engaging external experts to actually analyze the images of the alleged imposter and to confirm if that was indeed the Domi Kwabinya member of Parliament, adding that the caucus will soon bring to the public details of that investigation.
I think, to be fair to me, I am not one who starts a fight and runs away from it. I remain very consistent. Indeed, on the matter to do with presidential travels, I've been very consistent. I see that in the public space on social media, some people even want to give me a nickname and all of that. I think I've been very consistent, even at the risk of sometimes boring my audience. I've been very consistent, and I don't recall a time where a member of parliament has pursued a matter so vigorously to get 3 ministers. I got the defense minister to come answer. I got the finance minister to come to parliament to respond to my urgent question. I also got the national security minister. I mean, if that is not committed, dogged pursuit, then I don't know what it is. Then on the matter of absenteeism, I haven't abandoned it at all. I have served notice that it's a matter I'll be pursuing. I'm waiting for an opportunity to table my application and for the Privileges Committee to look into these matters. Indeed, since I started this campaign, my attention has been drawn by the venerable and highly regarded Professor Kweku Azan, who went to court in 2008 and has an appeal court decision, which says that really, once you cross the 15-day mark without permission, your seat should be declared vacant. So I'm now studying that appeal court decision, and it means that the House will have to, just activate. Yes, without necessarily going through. Yes, once you cross the 15-day mark, you don't have, according to the appeals court, you don't have any liberties, any salvation at the Privileges Committee. So, because of those new developments, I'm looking at my options within the current state of the law. On this matter, be rest assured that it's not a matter that I'm going to abandon. You know me; I'm quite passionate about these matters. I follow matters to do with profligacy, wastage, hiding under chartered aircrafts to just dissipate the taxpayers' money. So be rest assured there are even other things, far-reaching things that I'm working on, even for, the future of our country. I'm seriously, considering even private members, bill that will regulate some of these matters. So be rest.
On the matter of impersonation, where are we with that? You abandoned it along the line?
On the matter of impersonation, it has not been abandoned at all. I can assure you that we have gathered the evidence that we set out to put together.
It's been over months.
In politics, timing, strategy is very important. Our evidence is ready, is intact. We took a decision that leadership of our caucus, the NDC caucus, at the right time, will put out the evidence that we have gathered. So it wasn't abandoned at all. If it was abandoned, we would not have gone further to carry out investigations, to even, solicit external assistance, expertise that we hide, and all of that. A lot has gone on behind the scenes, but it's about timing, it's about strategy. You see, one issue at a time, and when you throw them in, when you bring closure to these matters, this is very, very important. So the general public should be rest assured. We are not just raising matters and abandoning them and moving on to other issues. Not at all.
The Supreme Court has questioned why lawyers for the Fix the Country convener, Oliver Barker-Vormawor, have failed to make an application for bail at the High Court, but rather engaged in what the court says is an intellectual exercise. The court today struck out a case filed by the youth activist. The justices took turns to urge the lawyers to focus on getting their client out of police custody. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has more in the following report.
We are going to make sure that we stand very strong and defend him in everything he's doing.
You should go according to the law. You shouldn't abuse the law. Exactly. Abuse the Oliver human rights way.
Oliver Barker-Vormawor remains in the custody of the police. His lawyers had filed an application that is produced at the High Court since his detention is unlawful. This was refused by the court, with his lawyers heading to the Supreme Court to seek its intervention. Led by Dr. Justice Shremsai, the youth activist legal team argued that the High Court committed an error of law. This was opposed by Deputy Attorney General Dinah Sunaba Dapa. She told the court the lawyers were not using the right procedure. The Supreme Court judges questioned why they were not making an application for bail but engaged in an intellectual exercise exercise when the liberty of an individual was at stake. Lawyers for the youth activists at this stage informed the court of wanting to withdraw the application. It was therefore struck out as withdrawn. It's not clear whether the lawyers will make an application for bail anytime soon.
And on the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, health officials of the AMA stormed the Bukum community to actually sensitize residents on the need to clean their drains. Now, after nearly a month since the sanitation campaign, Operation Clean Your Frontage was actually launched, the District Environmental Health Officer, Gordon Akoya, says the residents have actually failed to comply with the directives. Today, they have devised a new strategy to force defaulting residents to clean their drains. Here are excerpts of today's exercise.
It's another edition of Joy Clean Ghana campaign, and this time we are in Ashedu Keteke to continue with the campaign to ensure that we are sensitizing people on the need to keep the environment clean. We are here with some officials from the AMA, as well. I have Gordon, who's with the Ashedu Keteke. He's a Deho District Environmental Health Officer. Mr. Gordon, so this morning, what are we doing here?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Today's Joy Clean Ghana campaign is coming to you live from Ododo, that's within the jurisdiction of AMA. This is where we did a lot of education and sensitization. So we did the launching in this particular community, and unfortunately they are not still adhering to our advice, the sensitization and the education. So today we have a special strategy for them. When we come and your frontage is insanitary, in other words full of filth, we will lock your premises or shop and put you into the drain to clean it. After cleaning it, after cleaning it to the satisfaction of the team, then we open it for you to operate, because this is the language these people in the community understand. If you don't do this, you will not be able to achieve your aim.
Let's see how this goes for some of the residents here.
They come to work without even cleaning their own frontage. Look at the frontage. It's engulfed with filth. And instead of them to clean it before they start operating, they leave it aside. So we are going to lock this drinking bath down and then bring all of them here to desilt it. When they desilt it to our satisfaction, then we open for them to operate.
Sorry. One more frozen. And when she finishes the job, they will open for her. Go inside, no one call up. Charlie, the pilots.
And this one, you need to employ some people to do this. They should employ some people to do it. And you see, we are unemployed, we are home. We should be removing some people's shit for free. These are people's physics and other things, and we can't be removing it for free. So they should employ us. We are home. They should employ us, so we do it.
Okay, great. So that's his suggestion. What's your name, though?
I'm Fred.
Okay, so Fred here is suggesting that probably government looks at a mojo where they will employ some youth to act as waste or sanitation officers, in addition to that of the AMA, whose sole job will be to clean the drain.
My name is Yao Gariba. Okay. First, we get gutter cleaners where they clean every day. They pay them, but now we know they see anything. We don't understand. So that if this gutter choke, we will go volunteer and promote it, which is not fine.
So that's what the AMA is saying, that first they used to do it for you, but now the law has changed. They want you to be responsible for the rubbish that you create.
So now if so, then they have to provide us tools.
Yeah, earlier you also talking about the assemblyman. I mean, your interactions with him, you mentioned that he doesn't come forth with giving you tools to clean this.
But sometimes you can feel go there, then they say that somebody has come for it. So what you want to do, you can't do it.
So right now, what do you want to be done? Because some of the officials from the AMA are also here. I've seen the PRO here.
Now, if they want us to help, they have to provide us tools here. So anytime if there is a choke here, then we can come out it. That is what we want.
So you just heard from Gariba here, who is leading his men to clean the drain here. Not long ago, you heard the interaction between some officials from the AMA and some of these gentlemen who own an auto mechanic shop here. Just across the street is Jar Bless Pub, who's also being forced to do same. The threat is you fail to clean your frontage or lock up your facility. So the interactions are still ongoing, and you can see some of them have actually begun cleaning their drain. So let me get closer to Margaret. So Margaret, the officials say they've been here several times warning you about this drain here, but you failed to clean it. Do you have any peculiar challenges for which you've not been able to do that?
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
So it's an intentional thing that you won't clean the drain?
No, it's not an intentional thing. This is my first time coming here, so I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
So you haven't seen any of the officials here before?
Not really, no.
Okay.
This is my
Great.
first time seeing.
So today they are asking that if you don't clean it, they're going to lock up the place. How do you feel about that?
Feel bad. Yeah.
So going forward, what is going to be the chat from you? You lead the ladies from this pub, right?
Yep.
So from here, what are you going to be doing?
Well, we will make sure we clean it every day. Because what happened today, I feel bad about it. So I'll make sure every day I'll clean it so that next time when they come, I won't experience these things.
Great. So that's Margaret, who's leading the team of people from this pub here, Jobless Pub in Ododiodio, to clean the drain here. She tells us that what she feels very, very sad about what's happening here, where she has to be publicly ridiculed before she'll put in efforts to clean the drain. She promises that she will do better next time. Okay. So we are in another household here in Ododiodio where some of the residents are being called to come out. The drain that lies right in front of the house is filled with plastic waste, and the residents are being called to go out to clean it.
Is to make sure that the frontage is clean before you start your daily activities. So I want to see you inside to clean it from this corner to the last corner. That is, so call a person to come. No, I think the young man, you can do it alone. So.
So you can see that there's a drain that is coming from this particular household all the way to the main drain by the street, and the officials are actually going into that house to gather some of the residents. Let's see what will happen from here.
I will get time for them, give notice to everybody, tell them.
Hey, madam. You're from bra. Uncle bra. Bra.
When you are speaking that language, they will mind you. Unless you speak that.
Kewa Tineke, Aswa Mamila, Yona Nimitino, you again Tineba Sway. Manya Mata 20 City Amoko, Mobile, she can't be a Meonin Camelo, I'm a bag jampe, I'm a dan. She can't get away me at a legend Motuni, I can't learn him po. If I can low, call pay me my low. She no, call pay me low, pay me. Nakama call. She can't what Liaka, why me yon, call low, she na me by you, Minaka Amoko 20 about low, she. Mahano, get bien, I'm a balo, Samaka
Ta flat no ni sister you na kan ni shikop telebulu ya tun opalo esablan no tumo na metun ta flat e wa ni awa me no mo she ta flat e ke dia je hwe ofin gbo ma de sanji wo ko ke kan la ebe won ke wale ba o metumo be ni wo sister you at least ko ba po alaka am fi gbo ma de san tumo le go ba alaka le fi o ke be ni ba fe ofin be yan o be wo ma e ya no shike ba no command le lo mu fi mu ne ke enwe ke ade etwise ekole ba yu ni sani fi ta flat bo wo san wo la ka me fi funu wo support am me ni wo bla onupa yu o fun ba wa ko ni ma keke eyi ni wo fi fale je mo ko meto onutumu wo je men ke baba me.
So what they keep saying is that even sometimes when they decide to collect the plastic waste or the waste from the drains, they have to leave it by the roadside to dry for some time. But the AMA officials or whoever is in charge of collecting the waste by the roadside that they have left don't come to collect them, and they think that is really the biggest of their challenges, even when they devote themselves to clean the waste. I'll try to find Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon, so one of the things that is running through the conversations we have with some of the people here is that even in times when they decide to remove the drain, you don't come for the waste.
No. You see, every house is supposed to register for their waste. You understand? So when you register with the accredited AMA accredited waste companies, they will come each morning to take your garbage. You understand? So when you desilt your frontage, you need to keep it in the dustbin for the accredited waste companies to come and take it away. You understand? Because AMA has accredited to zone them. Zoom Lion is here. Tropical Waste is here, Menswell Waste Company 2 is here. You understand? So depending on which company is serving this area, so you register with that company, and anytime your dustbin is full, then they will come and take it.
It seems like a beautiful plan as you narrate it, but doesn't look as if these residents have any idea that they are supposed to register to a waste company.
Yeah, a lot of them have registered, but some too they have failed to register. So now when we come and then your house has not been registered, we will take action, legal action against you to register. Otherwise, the whole place will be engulfed with filth.
Mr. Gordon, again, they say that they remove the waste from the drains, but leave it by the roadside. Whose responsibility is it to come for the waste by the roadside?
No, by the roadside, it is the responsibility of the households to remove it and keep it in their dustbins. Okay. You understand?
And not by the roadside?
No, not by the roadside. You need to keep it in your dustbin so that when the accredited waste contractor is coming to take it, then the person will pick everything away. Okay. You don't keep it by the roadside, because when you do, it will go back to the drainage. Then it will be a cost 90 work. Okay.
Yeah. So there you have it. You are supposed to be keeping it in your waste bins and not by the roadside. Else you risk it washing back into the drains again, and definitely, like he says, cost 90. You've really not done anything.
And Michael Ashele giving us the latest there on the Joy Clean Ghana campaign. But you may know Asante Tree, you may know about Ebe or Ghana as well, but you certainly don't know about the Wasa language enough. Now, it's spoken in the Western region. It is one of the languages actually covering the most geographical space in the west coast of Ghana, and yet many natives can't read, speak or write it. School children in the area where it's spoken say there's a fear of getting punished actually in school, and that scares them from speaking the language. In the second of our series of stories celebrating Ghana Month, JoyNews' Justice Beidou traveled to Daboase in the Wassa East District, and here's a report on that.
Like Sechirem, Kofa Sechirem, if you say that, nobody will understand. Sechirem, that is scissors, pair of scissors, apaso. We call it apaso. If I say apaso, you understand. But when I say Sechirem, you don't know. Anechimbodo, what is tomatoes? You don't know. Euroko, that's salt, the hard ones, not the smooth ones, they don't know. Mrabra, that is the smooth one. Salt, the smooth one. Hey. So we have the anechimbo, Euroko, then the Mrabra. All this they don't know. We have animal like, domestic animal like bottom. If what says we have another name for that. So if you say bottom, you understand. But when you go in, they will not get it. Bottom, we call it a simpy.
Which team did Michael Essien play for in England? Tell us.
It is a quiz day today. All the children from schools in Daboase have come to compete for honors. Daboase is in the heartland of Wassa, one of the largest ethnic groups in the Western region. Many of the children taking part in today's quiz are all natives. A lot of them know no Wassa language at all.
Your major question.
After the Wassa language, I'm not familiar with it because at home there's something like Wassa.
Many people don't speak Wassa here because they are not taught to speak it. They are not allowed.
On the walls of the school, bold writings warning children against speaking Ghanaian languages. Instead, asking that speaking of English be prioritized. Those who have gone against this order have paid the price.
When the person is caught speaking the vernacular, the person is sent to the White House to clean up that place or caned.
It is mostly advised that the English language and the French should be spoken more so that we can cope with modernity.
Wassa is the language of the Wassa people. It sounds like a transition between Fanti and Asante, and very much like the Bono language too. The Wassa people cover one of the largest land areas in the Western region, with major towns like Takwa, Bogoso, Pristia, and Mpoho. Close to 300,000 people speak it.
I am Lawrence Kwamenafosa Daniel. My friends, we all came, some left, and I said, no, I will not go to any place. I want to develop my district, because that time there were shortage of teachers, and I said, once I've been trained, I'll have to work in my district and then also develop the district. So I've spent 41 years here. I'm sad. I feel sad that Wassa language is dying. Now with Wassa, we've contributed a lot. I feel sad because my language is dying.
Wassa is not studied in school, and the people who speak it, like teacher Afusa, are concerned that their language may be on the brink.
I know this lady or this man is from Wassa here, but he is not speaking, she or he is not speaking the language because the fish are.
By the power invested in you.
Justice Beidou, JoyNews, Daboase.
SIPLA as the winners. Congratulations, SIPLA. Congratulations, SIPLA. Congratulations to the other schools. Better luck next time.
And we'll definitely be bringing you more on the Ghana Month. Serious, but one issue that we've been looking closely at on the international front has got to do with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The latest is that refugees are crossing into neighboring countries along the Ukrainian border, including Ghanaians as well. But how is the EU actually preparing to receive this? Fortunately, we've been joined by Thomas Sparrow, who's with our partners DW. Thomas, so first of all, tell us, how is EU preparing to receive these refugees?
So there are preparations in two levels. So obviously at the wider EU level, there are discussions in particular among the different interior ministers to see how the EU as a whole, as a group, can prepare for the arrival of people fleeing from the conflict in Ukraine. In particular, what kind of regulations can be put in place. We've heard from different interior ministers in this regard that the EU will accept refugees coming from Ukraine, and they will try and do that in an unbureaucratic way. Then the second level is how different countries are preparing themselves to deal with the arrival of people fleeing from the war. In particular, some of Ukraine's neighboring countries, some of the EU countries closer to the conflict zone are those that are being most affected now by the arrival of people. So in particular Poland, but also Romania and Slovakia. And there are discussions as to how those particular countries can also prepare and can be helped from other parts of the European Union that are much farther away from the conflict altogether, but that could also end up receiving people who leave Ukraine in this particularly difficult moment.
And finding out really, how are people reacting to this new arrivals?
In Germany, for example, a recent poll stated that over 70% were in favor of welcoming those refugees coming to Germany, and you do see a sign of unity within the European Union, an unusual sign of unity when it comes to receiving people fleeing from this conflict, even in countries where you previously saw some skepticism towards the arrival of refugees. You're seeing those messages of support when it comes to helping Ukrainians. For example, Poland, a specific country here that has received most of the people leaving Ukraine. So in general, there is a sense of support, but there's also some concern, especially among analysts, that could shift, especially when numbers continue to grow, because in previous circumstances, like for example, the refugee crisis in 2015 and 16, you also saw at the beginning that wave of support, but it then shifted as numbers continued to grow. So there are people who are warning that this public support could shift as time progresses.
Focus on Germany itself. How many people are expected, and what are the authorities doing about it?
Well, Germany is preparing. At least they want to do it in a better way than 2015 and 16, especially in the first few months. We've already had numbers of refugees arriving here in Germany. Now the numbers are comparatively small if you look at other countries, so only around 2,000, but they're also growing day by day. In particular, they're arriving in the border region between Germany and Poland, so in the eastern part of the country. But here in Berlin, the first families have also arrived. The border regions are preparing, or at least that's what they said last week, for more than 10,000 arrivals, and they're also setting up reception centers and other mechanisms to try and help them. From a German perspective, just as from the EU perspective, it has been clear that Germany is going to welcome those people fleeing from the war. That's what we've heard clearly from the German government under Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
Focus on the reports that we're receiving of discrimination against Africans in Ukraine who are also trying to flee. Can you tell us more about the situation?
There have been complaints of discrimination and racism against Africans and other foreigners who, as well as Ukrainians, are scrambling to flee the country as a result of the Russian invasion. The complaint, in short, is that Ukrainians are being given priority at border crossings. The African Union said reports of Africans being singled out would be, quote, shockingly racist and in breach of international law. Ukrainian authorities, meanwhile, have denied that Ukraine was obstructing foreigners from leaving and stressed they first wanted to release, as they described it, women and children. Some migrants have also said that the accusations of racism are exaggerated, and the problem is the general chaos in the country. Meanwhile, European and UN officials have stressed there should be no discrimination whatsoever between Ukrainians and non-Ukrainians. And as Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock emphasized at the special session of the UN General Assembly, every refugee must receive protection no matter their nationality, their origin, or the color of their skin.
So now the Attorney General's office is promising speedy adjudication of criminal cases in support of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO. Now, Chief State Attorney for Ashanti and the ISS, the number of attorneys posted to the AG's office in the region currently makes it possible to speedily adjudicate and advise on cases. Ohiming Tewia has more in the following report.
The Attorney General's office has struggled to work on cases in the past, but has recently been resourced with at least 30 attorneys assigned to the agency. The Executive Director of YOCO, COP Mamiyatiwa Adudankwa, has been soliciting the support of AG's office with a call for the appointment of a standby attorney to work on YOCO cases. During a working visit to the Ashanti region, she met heads of sister security agencies to get acquainted with the work of YOCO in the region. According to COP Tiwa Adudankwa, collaboration between YOCO and AG's office will go a long way to improve case management.
We want you to get involved from the start. When they start a case, we want them to come and see you so that you start giving the appropriate direction right from the word go. So that when the docket is completed and it is brought to your attention for review, it's not like you have to start reading from page 1 to page 10. You would have been part of the case from the beginning so that it doesn't delay and it will speed up the process. When they open the diary of action, they are in their office to discuss the case with you, and then you start giving the advice and then direction right from the word go so that we get it right from the beginning.
Chief State Attorney for Ashanti region, Ernest Aye, welcomed the proposal from the YOCO boss. He assured of AG's support to speed up criminal investigations.
It has always been a challenge that dockets will have to take about a year before it comes to the AG's office. We look at it, we put the law by it, and then realize, no, somebody has said this. We should have taken the statement of this person. I believe that this is a good one, that right from the onset, we all start working, and we will be more than willing to work with you. Fortunately, now we have quite a number of attorneys. Gone were the days that the AG's office was struggling to do cases because of the very few number of attorneys that we have. But I think over the past years, efforts have been made to resource the office. And Kumasi is one of the offices which has, in fact, Kumasi is the next office after Accra, which has the largest number of attorneys working. And so definitely, when you bring the work, we will work. It's going to be on a daily basis. Immediately you bring it, it's not as if it's going to lie down.
COP Tiwa Adudankwa also visited the Ashanti Regional Police Commander, DCOP Afrobuachi Yadom, and the Regional Director of National Investigations Bureau. From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohiming Tewia reporting.
The Ghana Institution of Surveyors is warning the public against quack surveyors in the country. This caution has become necessary according to the outgone president of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors, Dr. John Amaglo, because of reported cases of duping and land guardsmen is orchestrated by the activities of fake surveyors. The institution says deliberate measures have therefore been put in place for easier identification of certified surveyors by the public through the introduction of a new stamp. Dr. Amaglo revealed this in an interview with JoyNews.
This is the reason why we want to come out with this professional stamp. If you are professional and you execute a job, you must be able to authenticate your work. A quack or somebody who is untrained cannot have access to that. But now the onus is on us, the institution, to educate the public, to look for the professional who have the professional stamps. The professional stamp we are coming out with, it will be very difficult to replicate because it has security features. If the public is aware that they have to deal with only professional surveyors, it will cut down the issues where people will go and do some other things, leading to the situation where we say that this person is a quack. We will be able to eliminate them instantly when the general public is aware of identifying who a professional surveyor is. our motto, service with integrity. We always say that you should not do anything that will bring conflict of interest. And if you are a professional, know that one day, any work that you churn out, somebody will come and review your work. So you must follow the codes of ethics, the standards, and apply the rules to deliver your services.
Sports is next.
Thank you very much for staying here with us on Pulse. It's time for sport, and I'll take you into something you may not have noticed. Well, you may be a fan of the English Premier League. Of course, you may be a fan of the traditional Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, or Liverpool. But away from that, some clubs have tried over the years and have invested resources in making themselves the fifth force, or probably the third force, the proverbial one at that everybody can reckon with. Now, a lot of these resources go into buying material for technical, and also for material playing on the football pitch. So we want to look at the story of Tottenham Hotspurs, who now have Italian Antonio Conte in their fold. Now, following the exit of Argentine, Mauricio Pochettino, who took them all the way to a final of the UEFA Champions League, there was the expectation that the next few managers would go one notch higher. But it sure hasn't been a very easy one at that. We'd want to take a look at Antonio Conte at Tottenham Hotspurs and how the journey has gone so far, what he may probably not be getting right, even though he still has a fine core of the same set of players that were used by the likes of Mauricio Pochettino to achieve what he achieved before leaving. Here with me in studio, as usual, is Joy Sports' Joel Botte, who's been taking a close look at this situation at Tottenham Hotspurs. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Well, let's get into this story. I mean, the Italian recorded massive success with Chelsea, as their manager. He also did same in his homeland in Italy, in the Italian Serie A, and on the stage of the UEFA Champions League. Now, he's looking forward to doing this with Tottenham Hotspurs, but it looks like in recent match days, things have not exactly gone the way you'd want them to. What could be the problems?
If you look at the history of Tottenham, they've gone 15 straight years without a trophy.
Very well.
Antonio Conte has been one manager that is known for winning trophies wherever he's been.
Very well.
At least a trophy. He's been to Inter Milan, won a Scudetto, been to Chelsea, won a Premier League in his first season. And the numbers are there. But if you look at Tottenham's situation, after Pochettino left, they got Mourinho to come in. Mourinho got them to a final, but wasn't able to get them to cross that hurdle. They sacked him and went in for an interim manager who was once with the club. After that, they got the opportunity of bringing in Nuno, who had a good record with Wolves.
Nuno Espirito Santo, yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
So when Nuno came in, the expectation was higher for Nuno because they gave him whatever he needed. If it was signings, they got it for him. And the belief was that Nuno was the kind of manager that would have the feel of Pochettino, because Pochettino was not popular before coming into Spurs, and same with Nuno. So giving Nuno the opportunity for a bigger club might give him that exposure to get or do much more than he did for Wolves. Now, Nuno wasn't able to achieve that in his first 4 months and was sacked. Now it brings us to Antonio Conte. Conte is a manager, as I said earlier, that is known for winning trophies, and that is what Tottenham are looking for. That's one trophy to break that drought. But unfortunately, that is Conte has made reference to the fact that the players he has at the moment are lacking two things: mental toughness and effectiveness. These two things are things that have followed Tottenham over the years, and Pochettino was able to get players that could suit them to get them to the final. But after that, the players could not break that record, could not get to that stage, and that's where we are right now. So Antonio Conte has a lot of work to do mentally on those players.
Now, you have, for instance, let me just zero in on the front line. So you have a Son Heung-min there, you have a very experienced Harry Kane there, who is always amongst the top runners when it comes to scoring goals every other season, at least in the last 4 to 5 seasons. Now, is there so much work, like so much of workload to be done on players like these who have seen the highest points of achievement of Tottenham Hotspurs?
So this is where I find the problem. It's not a hurricane on a human soul, but it's the Embassy Royals, the Dyers, the Hoibergs that need the working on. Because if you look at Tottenham at the moment, they're having problems defensively. They've conceded a lot of goals this season. And it's been a big problem for them, looking at the way Tottenham are looking to play. 5-back is one that is known to hold a lot of defensive solidity and also help with the wide areas in attack. So if you have such a formation and you have such a coach who is known for effectiveness and decisiveness up top, you then question the people at the back that what are they doing to hold the team up when they are building up top? In reference to that, if you look at Tottenham this season, Conte came in, as I said, 4 months. They came after Nuno's 4 months, and Spurs lost 4 players in the summer, 4 first-team players, but were not able to bring in the players that could replace them, and this is where the problem was. So I believe that Tottenham are struggling with the players and the mental toughness and the quality of players they have currently.
Well, on match day 18, we're going to have Everton play Tottenham, and that will be a Monday fixture. Quick projections into that game?
That game, I find it a very tough one because Everton struggled. They didn't struggle, but they were unfortunate against Manchester City. And they are currently fighting for relegation. They're fighting against relegation because they are close to the relegation zone, if not there. So facing Tottenham, who are also having this difficulty at the moment and inconsistency, is something that Lampard can look to thrive on and capitalize on for his side, his new side, who are playing very well under him. So we would have to see how that works out. I believe it's going to be a draw, but I'm tipping it's being made by fine margins, a game decided by fine margins.
Okay, a game to be decided by fine margins. This is according to Joy Sports' Joel Bolte. Let's see if all of that comes through. We're looking forward to seeing how well the Merseyside club are able to hold their own against Tottenham Hotspurs in the coming weekend. Of course, it's actually next week. It's a Monday fixture. So maybe the Conte magic could just work. That's it for your sport. There's more later this evening when we bring you the major bulletin at 8:30 p.m. In the meantime, click on the sports page of myjoyonline.com for more. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I have love for sport.
And certainly the polls will return same time tomorrow, but that's all we have for you in this package. Log on to myjoyonline.com for the latest on all of our stories here on the Joy News channel. My name is Blessed Sugan. There's more for you here on the Joy News channel.